We have this idea, like, imagine if we were to go back in time and speak to people of ancient Greece, and we said, yeah, we have airplanes and helicopters. We're pretty advanced. And they'd be like, wow, that's amazing. You must never have accidents. You must never crash. Well, we're way more advanced than they were, but it doesn't mean that we're perfect. And why would we assume perfection from a civilization that's even more advanced technologically than us?
Right. Or it might be more biologic. The craft is sort of a hybrid mechanical biological entity, so it can self-repair, or it interfaces with the biological occupants as well. So, I mean, your question is really broad. There's a lot of crash retrievals that have happened. There's, I'm not sure where else to go with your question.
I'm sorry. I probably left it too far open, but well, let's talk a little bit about Cape Girardeau, since you have focused on that so much. And I know that you know Charlotte Mann, who's the primary source on that, quite well. I have spoken with Charlotte a number of times, and she's just wonderful. But you really have gone into that case. And I think that's actually a very important case, just because it's 1941. And, I mean, that's 6 years before Roswell. And it would indicate, if true, there was a whole system well in place by the time Roswell came along, or Trinity, if we want to go there with, the work that Jacques Vallée and Paola Harris just did. What would you like to say about Cape Girardeau?
Well, I mean, Cape Girardeau is an interesting sort of microcosm of how you investigate a crash retrieval case. And people often ask, well, how do you do it? I mean, it's so in this particular case, we had the one of the Majestic Documents mentions the Reverend Huffman 1941 or Cape Girardeau case. And actually, Stan Friedman was one of the people that originally found or heard of Charlotte Mann and his and her testimony. And so the story goes that Reverend Huffman, who was the Baptist minister on Main Street in Cape Girardeau, was taken out by police, called out to provide blessings to 3 dead aliens. And he did that, and the police and military showed up and swore everybody to secrecy and took all the bodies off to Sykeston airfield at the time, which was a training base for pilots. And it sort of all was quiet then. And this testimony comes to Charlotte Mann, the granddaughter of Reverend Huffman, from Flo Huffman, the wife of Reverend Huffman's deathbed confession, and fills in a lot of details to her. So we have, I mean, admittedly secondhand testimony from Flo Huffman to Charlotte. We have the document. And my investigations went to, well, let's go to Cape Girardeau and look at the fire station logs from 1941 and see, well, where did the fire department go? Because they were called out to the scene. And so you can get the logs there of the fire department, and you can go to the Baptist church and look at the records there and show that, yeah, Reverend Huffman was, and where he lived, and so forth. And then ultimately, you want to know the 2 major challenges with any crash retrieval is precisely when and precisely where. And those, if you can get those things down, you can really open up the investigation. And so that was the goal of going to the National Archives and doing historical aerial photography comparisons between, 1939 overflights of Cape Girardeau and 1943 overflights, and looking for differences. Well, where's the land disturbed? Where we knew it was a 15-minute drive outside of Cape Girardeau. We knew it was either the spring or fall, because it was sweater weather. So anyway, those are types of things that you end up doing to further investigate. And then I sort of stopped, and Paul Blake Smith continued on with the investigation and sort of become the follow-on investigator. And he wrote a book on Missouri 41. So that's sort of how you go about investigating that particular case. But everyone is sort of different.
Did you find anything? I actually don't recall what your conclusion was or your investigation on Cape Girardeau just uncovered. Did you uncover changes in the geography or topography, or did you find any other interesting clues? I wonder.
Yes, there was a couple of spots that were anomalous that were worth investigation. One turned into a housing tract, and you can't sort of go there and find out because it's all been leveled and houses. So you're looking for artifacts. And then you look at the people too. Cape Girardeau is the home of Rush Limbaugh, and Rush Limbaugh Sr., who was very much involved in the entire process and trajectory of it. And somebody called Rush Limbaugh when he was still alive on his radio station and said, have you heard about this Cape Girardeau UFO crash? And he hemmed and hawed and sort of said, there's a lot more to this than meets the eye.
No kidding.
Yeah, and sort of subtly acknowledged it, but didn't really go into the details, because his father, no doubt, probably told him a lot about it, because it was a small town, and he was, I think he was on the city council or the mayor, and certainly one of the stalwarts of the town.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it was like, that's sort of fun. And I think I have it as a medium high quality, not as high as Roswell, where you have a lot more documents and a lot more evidence, or Kecksburg with a lot more research. But I
don't want we can move on, but I just think relating to the Cape Girardeau event, it's true. Like, we only have really the one witness, Charlotte, and she's the granddaughter. It's true. However, people can probably find video of her out on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
I know she's there. You talk to Charlotte for even 5 minutes, and you've got a person of scrupulous honesty, conscientiousness. There's no question about any of that. There's no question that she's honestly telling what her grandmother told her.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to believe Charlotte.
Yes.
When you talk with her.
Yeah. And it was the subject of a MUFON conference talk that I gave, I don't know, in the late 2000s, I think, or so there's conference proceedings and there's her video testimony, but yeah, it's one of the good ones. You don't know.
No, go
on. It's difficult to know what to make of it all. I mean, the crash retrieval scenario is pretty uniform. Is that it crashes, sometimes there's bodies, sometimes there's not. The military takes it all away. There's some witnesses and some documents. And, one time at the crash retrieval conferences, I had an aviation archaeologist come and talk about airplane crashes and what he found. And for example, there was a Bakersfield stealth fighter crash that he had been to and pulled all sorts of parts off the hillside, despite the military coming in and cleaning it all up, long before stealth fighters were, in the public domain.
Yeah.
So they can't really clean it all up. And didn't somebody just find something anomalous in the desert of Roswell? A little tiny stone with a fancy symbols on it or something like that.
I'm not sure that I heard this, but
yeah. And so it's out there.
You just were making me think. I mean, there's a number of things that come through loud and clear in your research. That is a kind of consistency that runs through many of these cases. A number of them are multiple witness accounts, not all, but some of them are. What you definitely find is a consistency of accounts, like the description of the craft or the recovery process or the subsequent secrecy over it. Like all of it's very consistent. There are times when there's a fair amount of technical accuracy, technical details provided by the witness concerning different operations and procedures. It just all suggests to me that these people are certainly not fabricating their stories. We do have some instances of physical evidence, or alleged physical evidence, I guess I should say. All of that strikes me as relevant to the discussion. And we also, there are some other government documents. Not all of them are leaked Majestic documents. There are some documents in FOIA that do indicate U.S. government interest in downed exotic technology. We have one from Bolivia in 1978, and I know there's a bunch of others. So I just, all of that to me strikes me as relevant in this, and I'm sure you can say a lot about that as well, having gone through all of these cases.
Right. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because many of the cases are the source documentation is publicly released FOIA documents on Project Moondust, or Moondust was primarily, let's pick up Soviet space junk and send it back for analysis.
But not exclusively.
Right. That's right.
Not exclusively. Please discuss this. I think a lot of people don't know about Project Moondust.
Moondust, and I think it's still an active program today. But every once in a while, the teams recovering stuff that came out of the sky or the atmosphere wasn't Soviet space junk. It was ET craft or artifacts, and they carted it off and sent it to Wright-Patterson. And so
we know about Moondust. There is a declassified document, I think from 1961 or 1960, that describes Project Moondust. It describes the types of artifacts that it's charged with recovering. And I think one of the entries is unidentified flying objects. I believe. I think that's as distinct from Soviet satellites and the like.
Right. And there's I think there was a whole book written on Project Moondust long ago. I think it needs to be updated. I think I had a Randall, I think, wrote it.
Kevin Randall.
Kevin Randall. I had a personal experience where I called Aerospace Corporation in Pasadena and said I wanted you to analyze some crashed hardware that I've recovered. And mentioned Moondust, and the guy said, well, let's schedule another call to talk about this more. And I said, okay, fine. And so I did that, and lo and behold, there was two guys on the phone this time, no doubt the security officer and this scientist. And we talked about, various investigation techniques about how you could do this, what it would cost, and so forth, sort of a business thing. But it was pretty clear that it was still an active Moondust program at the time. And, if Congress wants to get into it, find and declassify all the Moondust documents and that program. And they'll get space junk, but they'll find other things and another door.
It's true. No one has been talking about Moondust over the last year in the public realm. I haven't heard any reference to this.
Right.
And you make a really good point, because when you were holding the crash retrieval conferences, we're talking now 15 years ago. 15 years. But Moondust came up a lot. I recall this very well. This was something that was very much talked about, and because there is some of a FOIA trail for Project Moondust, like it's confirmed, and I'm not hearing anyone talk about it now. I think that's a very good opportunity.
Yeah, it is.
To be opened up.
The other thing is that when I was listening to the UAP congressional investigation, and one of the congressmen asked a question about, well, can you give me any specifics on where I could find documentation or source material about this? And Grush sort of said, I'll send you to a skiff. I'll tell you all this stuff in top secret closed door. And my response would have been, Record Group 341, entry 47, folder 22. And here's a document that describes crashed bodies and a UFO event that's too bizarre to believe. And I mean, it's not a smoking gun, but it's more smoldering. And there's a bunch of documents that are right out of the National Archives.
Are you referring to a specific document when you just said
Yeah,
that? And if so,
exactly.
what were you referring to?
Well, I'll email it to you. So it's a one pager that was a correspondence between Robley Evans and somebody in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, or about a top secret document. So there are many examples of that I got out of the National Archives. I think you went with us once to the National Archives.
I did, yes. Yeah, we had a great experience there.
Yeah, and there are, I mean, it's almost a whole book. You know, I wish somebody would get motivated or excited about it, just to say evidence from the archives. And if the congressmen really want to know more about this, give me 5 people with top secret Q clearances and 3 and 4 months in the National Archives, and I can give you a stack of paper that gives you
okay,
story.
well, we need a single compendium, don't you think?
Yeah.
Of those documents. This is another project for you, Ryan. I'm sorry, but you're the best person to do this. You know, where you've got the receipts, and you can probably gather them together. Right. I think that would actually be a fantastic thing. You know, officially recognize U.S. government documents that test to UAP crash retrievals.
Right. I mean, the challenge is that you get snippets, stories, supporting evidence around a more stunning, majestic document from the National Archives, and sort of, and of course, all sorts of withdrawal slips that say, you know, hey, this is withdrawn, top secret, and get it declassified. So there is a lot of evidence out there, and hopefully Congress will do another event and look at this closer.
Well, there's definitely things brewing in the background. I'm aware of this, and the word is that there at least is some desire for additional hearings. I do hope that happens. How far that will go is anyone's guess, but I think it would be nice if we were to see that happen. And your book really needs to be part of this conversation. It seems to me it's and you know, I think you justly point out, look, I don't know if every single case in here is exactly a slam dunk. That isn't the point. The point is to put the evidence out there. But there are a number of cases that are quite strong.
Yeah,
quite strong indeed. And you make the case, I think, very, very well. Yeah, so it's important.
The thing that could be focused on, and others have focused on it before, is the Special Operations Manual, where we've done so much work around the content and the typesetting and interviewing people that were in the government printing office, and how the authenticity of that particular document stacks up. And my work on the provenance, it was stamped Kirkland Air Force Base, Unit KB-88, and the change control page, where the officers are responsible for changing out certain pages as they change and evolve over time.
I'm going to ask you to describe this document again. And by the way, I'm going to have a link to it to your website, majesticdocuments.com, where people can examine all of these documents.
Sure.
I think that is important. But can you just describe the SOM 101 for people, because not everyone is on board. There's a lot of new people who come to the field in the last 5 years. They don't know about this document. Yeah.
Well, it's a typeset document that was leaked as film, undeveloped film, to Don Berliner, mailed from La Crosse, Wisconsin. But it's it's a how-to manual. It's sort of training the recovery soldiers on how to retrieve crash retrieval, uh, you know, situations. From where do you take the alien bodies? How do you pack them up? Where do you send the power plants? Where do you send the crash hardware? Where do you send the weapons? There's a whole page that describes the various packaging techniques and where they go. Most of them go to Area 51 S4, but some of them go to Wright-Patterson's Blue Lab, which has been sort of acknowledged that exists. And the most mysterious one is OPNAC BBS 04, which I think stands for Bronx Biological Station, for Dietlif Bronk, famous surgeon that was plugged into this. But it's very much a how-to manual of, well, why are we doing this? How do we do this? How do we
There's advice, there's protocols on crowd control and media management as well.
Right. Good point.
How to handle the public, how to keep people quiet.
Right. And some of the things that say, well, tell them it's a down satellite and keep away. And some people said, well, it's a fake because in 1954, when this was published, we hadn't flown a satellite. But when you look at the popular press, like in Time magazine and so forth, in 53, it was all over the front page that artificial satellites were coming. So
it was talking about mystery satellites all throughout that year.
Yeah, and then the big thing for me, which is what the FBI would say, is, well, the change control. Who was responsible for updating this manual? And there was two initials in this manual, EWL and JRT. And I found them in the Albuquerque phone book, and they're both officers on Perimeter Road inside Kirkland Air Force Base. And so you have the names. I have their DD-214s and their military records, and they're both dead. But nevertheless, it all hangs together.
I was not aware of that part. That's really
right.
That's cool.